הרגע בין של Čega nam biće još gore? Sad idem na Mano.
Ali sad sam čuo nešto da su ministarstvo nešto bili samo zasinavano, nemam pojma. Nešto su domljeni u odluku koji sad opštava konstuzija, mogu su da popravljamo i pravimo i tako. Sa nekom moram da stavimo po ovom stresu.
A to je ministarstvo. Ja sam prošla po najnosim.
Ok.
Tako da možemo se vrijeti. Ideja da se vam...
A ti treba tu da budeš sve, ti se na početku treba, znači mi smo organizatorski tu, onda sad će tu pa ti sedi.
Bravo, zato govorim ovako ne. Mislim da nešto izlazi ovaj.
Ja sam isto vijest, vidite da ovo naravno ne htjelo tamo, vidjet ćemo zavisi povučanosti programa. Uopće su
We will sit there, the ambassador will sit there, and we will just like opening the audience.
No. Yes. And before the It's okay. Yes.
Ne moraš, Čuješ?
When did you?
And this night at 1 a.m. Because the second flight was yes, because it was at 4 p.m. The first flight at Milan, and the second Milan plane at 11 p.m. So I arrived at 1 p.m. At 1 p.m. In a private Vienna conference near here. And we have the apartment.
It's an Airbnb.
It's a sort of B&B with apartments.
Alexander is our favorite colleague. How many years already?
2023, the first time it was here.
Yes. You have to look at the book. Did you register? So
Yes.
look at the top of the conference from last time. So, 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay.
So, Alexander,
Yes.
what is your topic?
My topic is about citing and focus, and I will talk about the format and all the citing about the no, Sally and the actually getting minutes.
And this is organized. I think so. Usually, there were men.
Something about that's the practice. We had, for example, if the traineeship was a major officer in Hungary, we had the Avivit of the university, government finances here, and the neighbor of Switzerland. We had the general of social groups. It was the outside of
Was really a big organized nice institution. This is a place. This is not really part of this. It's the warm environment here. Many works like
Да, причем
I would just present what I spent a lot of months and for like. But I think it's still pretty. Yeah, yes. Maybe there was is a sign of the space where it was made in the 50s. And that just like or it's there's like before decisions. And it was like something sometimes it was just like yes. That's what yours. That sounds yes. Next thing you do is kind of try to I did it like I didn't really follow those people right like really find someone just like and it's always like and my boss. Culture. Red lecture. He was like very close once. Directly.
There is no number one.
Drinking from the first bottle.
Love them. I mean, the color and everything. Didn't see it. No. Yeah, yeah. I thought it would be nice for us to sit there. Ambassador will also be there. Milovan will be here. So the banner is behind us. That's makes some sense. She was ready. How is life by the sun?
How is life? Some years ago, they decided to say yes to two areas. And it was a case of all the materials on the files. And the reaction is
אני חושב שבואי לכאן ונצטלם אולי על יד הבנק.
מצוין.
לא,
יכול לשלוח אותך לחבר'ה שעובדים אצל שרה. רוצה לראות אותך מפיפה? רגע, ניקח טלפון אין בעיה.
Actually, this year they don't stop.
Classic push with the
נראה לי גם שאפשר ממש ברמה כזאת, לבנות את הצדדים יותר מדי.
ממש עמיר פרץ. תמונה מעולה. עוד אחת אחרונה? לא, למה זה יפה? לא, זה נותן כזה, את יכולה להזיר אותו טיפה כאילו פה, אבל שיהיה בתמונה. כן, ואז...
Definitely, the majority sentiment of last night.
עשינו כאן בלגן, אין לי מושג. עשינו כאן בלגן, כבר אין לי מושג של מי הדקות. לכתוב על זה, לפעמים כבר נכתוב פוסט, ואני לא אשתעבי.
We talked about that being
What's next? Stockholm. I'll be in Stockholm next. So I don't have to do a SPAR. That's the. But then it's last month I'm okay. It's right in here. Yeah. It's so beautiful. I've never been here before. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. And I'm also part of the other one too. I can't think of the title of it. I'm losing my mind, but the two-part workshop in Graz. So I'll be in Graz. Yeah, of course. So yeah, it's been such a great. Yeah, more workshop. Yeah, that's good. And I'm excited today because one of the women that I'm presenting, she died in 2012. So yeah, I know, and she's happy that I left her because her, yeah, the way she comes. Sorry, guys. All right, so we can sit up registry. Okay, registry. Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. Get to know the young girls. I'm sorry. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I went to the I went to the university. Well, yeah, so my ancestors came from the Netherlands to the US. And I'm living so yeah, no, I know of you. So I yes, so last night. Yeah. She was right from the inquest. Yeah. So she was, so I did my PhD in digital and she was there to do hours. And now, yeah. Yeah, I know you yes, I am later on today. We survived the Holocaust through relevance. So I'm looking at their experiences during the Holocaust and a lot about how they took their experiences of the world around careers. So today I'll be talking about one of the three women and one she's back here in 2012. So she's very interesting. Yes. Yeah, I'll be in Graz. Next students I've been involved in two part of the shop. That is another aspect of this. So it's been great to work out. The different aspects. Well, yes, I'm gonna be writing my paper on minority, but I'm the second part of the process. So it's about women's space. So it's nice to be realized. Exactly, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what we met on. I mean, we see I was. Yeah. I was trying to see, and I can find the restaurant. So you don't have to like. The maps. Okay, thank you. All right, great.
Vamos ver se é no novo. Sai dos famílias.
You are talking here?
Yes.
Do you project?
We will have all this.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
People ask let's see.
Okay.
אוקיי, אוקיי, שיושבים איזושהי, זה הולך במסכים האלה לכל המקומות שיושבים, ובאמת מילובן ידבר. איפה מדברים? זה הולך. אני לא אוהבת לספר על מה אתה מדבר?
כבוד, ראיתי ששר התרבות והספורט יש.
מה? אל תסכים.
מה אנחנו אשמים?
לא, הרבה תמונות. רוצים לקרוא, אנחנו שואלים. But you see that sacraments, and we have to see public worship and bless you. So,
זה מה שכתוב.
נו, אז מה אני אומרת לצפון? זה שם, אני לא, שצריך לבדוק, אז מה? זה לא, אתה רואה, זה לא מפרש.
לא, אני ראיתי את הספיסט.
Just ask Milovan. Yeah, Milovan is here for the coordination of this party.
Yeah, shalom.
ציפיות להפכה הישראלית בשואה.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the State of Israel, the Republic of Serbia, dear friends, colleagues, students. It is my honor and pleasure to speak as to moderate the opening of the third Biennial Conference of WAISC, Women in the Holocaust International Studies Center, and the second one organized in Belgrade in partnership with the Shoah of the Institute for Philosophy and Social Theory, IFDT, of the University of Belgrade. I'm Professor Dr. Nevena Damir, Professor of Film and Media Studies at the Faculty of Drama Arts, being at the Avivit University in Belgrade, University Park in Belgrade. I'm a member of the Shoah, where my research focuses on the stream narrativization and representation of the Shoah and so on. I had the privilege of presenting at the previous WAISC conference, but unfortunately, due to previously accepted obligations, now I will join you only as a member of the audience and the conferenciers on the side. Because of my multiple affiliations and the fact I'm very proud of that I was professor of nowadays my brilliant younger colleagues at the Shoah Lab, at that moment they were just my students at the university, I'm serving as a sort of a liaison for all of us coming from diverse institutions, research fields, and countries, yet united by our shared commitment to Holocaust, memory, and trauma studies. This third conference holds special importance, is of huge emotional depth and social value for all of us. The opening of the second conference took place on October 7, 2023. It was a day of speeches with a stiff upper lip and friendly voices, with tears and shock in our eyes. We were all visibly shattered, and our thoughts were with our colleagues, friends, and families in Israel. 2 years later, symbolically and equally emotionally, we gather again in Belgrade. Today is a day of gratitude and celebration for those returning home to their families, their country, and in a way to all of us. It is also a day of remembrance and grief for all those who have not returned. The theme of this conference, Lives Worth Living, the Untold Stories, perfectly captures the complexity of the moment. It also underlines the dedication to the women in the Holocaust, highlighting their experiences and work to redress and change the gender imbalance that has haunted the research of Holocaust from the beginning. I wish you a successful conference and a pleasant stay in Belgrade. Želim vam uspješnu konferenciju I prijetan boravak u Beogradu. And now I will try, in honor of our friends and give Israel, to say that also in Hebrew. So please do not hold that against my pronunciation. והחלק לכם כתלכה וידע השקיעה נעימה בגלגל. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to the representative of the host institution of this conference, Avivit, and research fellow coordinator of Shoah and lecturer at Thames Conference University Partnership in Holocaust Studies, Milovan.
Thank you Melvin, very much. On behalf of the Institute of Philosophy and Social Theory at the University of Belgrade, I have a pleasure and honor to have you here and to be the co-host of the organization institution organizing this really important event. Thank you to our friends, not only colleagues, but our friends, to give us the possibility to organize for the second time this important event and gathering together all you different experts from different parts of Europe, not only Europe, talking for 2-3 days about something that's in other countries, in other regions, is not so present. So as scholars, I know that unfortunately in our historiographies, the topic of the women in the Holocaust is not so present. So what we're trying to do, and thank you again, is also to bring the knowledge to the to our students, first of all, and to all the others experts dealing with the Holocaust in order to make it touch. Thank you again. I'm really happy to have you here. I will give the introductory lecture, so I will not take more time. And yes, I'm sure that this is the second time, and then we'll have other time to also organize this together.
Promise, many more.
Yeah.
And now it is truly a great honor to present the lady who hardly needs an introduction at all, Her Excellency the Ambassador of the State of Israel to the Republic of Serbia, Ms. Bar-Ilan.
Thank you very much. Distinguished dear colleagues, it is a profound honor to join you today in this important international conference, Lives Worth Living, the Untold Stories. I would like to thank the Institute of Philosophy and Social Theory and the Women in Holocaust International Studies Center for the dedication of bringing out this. This gathering is not only a tribute to the resilience, courage, and creativity of women in the darkest chapters of human history, but also a vital reminder of the responsibility we carry today to remember, to educate, and to ensure that such atrocities never happen again. The stories explored here of resistance, of endurance, and of a cultural expression under unimaginable conditions highlight the strength of the human spirit and the essential role of memory in shaping our future. Israel, in its current role as the president of IRA, the International Holocaust Remember Alliance, reaffirms its commitment to preserving the memory of the Holocaust, to supporting research and education, and to promoting dialogue and understanding of stories. This is also a very good opportunity to urge everyone here to join the global campaign under IRA presidency and to sign the Survivors Declaration on the Yad Vashem website, reaffirming our collective commitment to human rights, equality, and peaceful resolution of the conflicts. Please, I will be very much happy if you could join those who signed already the declaration. I wish you all a fruitful and inspiring conference. May the work done here continue to illuminate the untold stories and remind us of our shared duty to stand against hatred, of oppression, and intolerance everywhere. Bye-bye. תודה רבה.
As representative of WHISC, we hear Professor Dr. Halpert Zamir of the Bar-Ilan Academic College of Education, Jerusalem.
Thank you. Your Majesty, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Israel, here, Miss Avivit Bar-Ilan. Of course, my dear colleagues and friends, everybody who is here. I'm very honored and pleased to open the third International Conference of WIS. And this time, our theme is Lives Worth Living. It's our second time in Belgrade, organizing in full collaboration with our friends, the Institute of Philosophy and Social Studies in the University of Belgrade and the Shoreline. Everything under the perfect guidance of Professor Dragana. Thank you, Dragana. You are more than perfect. The success of this conference relies on all of us, and that's why I thank everybody, and I want to start with personal names. WIS Women at the Holocaust International Studies Center is actually an initiative inspired by my vision to create an interdisciplinary research center stories of women in the Holocaust, Jews and non-Jews, victims and victimizers, bystanders and activists, everyone. I think that, no, I don't think, I'm completely sure that this initiative couldn't be realized and be true unless the help of Yaakov and from Moeshet, who really became not only my partner for the vision, but also for the very practical things like economic issues concerning WIS. And of course, with the help of Professor Carol Rittner, who is our President of Honor. And as all of you must know, Carol Rittner was the first scholar in 1993 to ask the question, what about the women? So this conference, like all of our conferences, deal with women. We hosted in WIS many international activities, conferences, workshops, fellowships, online panels, publications. Some of the books are here. Then our chief editor is Dragana. And many other activities. We are collecting the we have about 600 already items in the big data referring to women in the Holocaust different sources. Lives Worth Living highlights unique stories of women during the Holocaust, emphasizing lives and not death. I believe that we must see life as the center of our research and not death, because that was the issue and the purpose of the Nazis. And I would like to quote here the Yokish who said, what's the meaning of 6 million then, if you don't know the life story of one individual, his name, the nickname that his mother or lover used to call him or her. And I think that this is one of our main purposes in WIS, to concentrate on the unique story of each one of the persons. This time I would like to focus more on Serbian and former Yugoslavian women, because they did so much, and unfortunately research so little is mentioned and known about them. Belgrade is not only our host city and university. For me personally, Belgrade is the cradle of my whole academic existence. Everything for me started in 1986. Ulica Milovan Posereća 15, when I met Danilo Kish. And he opened for me a whole new world, history and story. Throughout his literary work, I discovered what happened here in former Yugoslavia throughout 2 totalitarian regimes, and it went out in other regimes later on.
I had the honor and opportunity through the work on Yugoslavia, through peace, to meet some wonderful women that were so brave, women like Eva here, Panic, who not only survived the Holocaust, but also Tito's Goli Oto. I had the honor to meet people like Miriam Steiner-Abieser, Dina Katan, Anna Somlo, and many others. And I think that this conference should be in the light of these women. We should celebrate life of very brave women, even if some of them did not survive the Holocaust, but their deeds are so important. So let's have a really interesting, inspiring conference, and let's really let's celebrate life that worth living. Thank you.
Now, the last certainly not the least, we have the conference committee and organizational team. We will be addressed by Dr. Dragana, member of the Advanced Steering Committee, and one member of WIS and research fellow at Bar-Ilan.
Thank you. Your Excellency, dear colleagues, dear friends. So many beautiful words have already been said, but let me just tell you that I'm so proud and so happy that we nurture this cooperation, the ITT and WIS, for 3 years now, and I also hope for many more years to come. It has been nothing but joy and inspiration to work with WIS, personally for me, but also for Charlotte. And let me just tell you, because we don't have a lot of time, I would like also to tell you something that stands for this continuation, because the conference is not the only event that we do. What is happening in between is something like this book. So this book is a book that you're going to find in your welcome packages. So each of you has it. And this is the results of the research that 11 or a little bit more of our researchers did at the conference, after the conference, producing in the end these brilliant, I would say, 11 chapters. There are different chapters. We are going to see it on resistance, on women's bodies, on art, culture, and also on commitment to change. What we try to do is also to connect the Holocaust studies with the post-Holocaust time and to think very responsibly of how this knowledge can be really put to motion in contemporary times. So we try to encompass it in all the chapters. Let me just say for the end of this short speech that the conference that you see is a fruit, so to say, of so many people. So this was a teamwork, and I'm very happy for it. First of all, the academic committee did so many things and such a thorough work, and I would like to mention them by name. Professor Dr. Klinka Birakovic, Dr. Bata Brutin, Professor Dr. Gilfa Zamir, Dr. Milovan, also, there was a full logistic team, and he will be the head of our logistic team, Dragana, when we go back to the Institute for Philosophy and Social Theory. There is our technician, Milovan, whom I always call a magician, because that's what he is, and he's going to help us for everything to flow really smoothly. And also, of course, the Paul Shoalad that is among us that tremendously helped with this conference. I want to say thank you. And
here that nothing would happen if I don't meet Sonia.
Bravo.
So that's true.
This year, I'm also having the pleasure to be officially part of the best review too. So the conference is
good. So
So, now it's time for our first speech. It's the keynote lecture by Dr. Milovan, who is a research fellow of the Belgian University, Avivit. He is the coordinator of the Dragana research unit for the study of the Holocaust and the main contributor to partnership in Holocaust studies. I haven't said it. He's internationally recognized expert on the Holocaust-related topics and the genocide against the Roma, and the author and coordinator of several international projects, among the others, mapping the Holocaust, preservation of the Doubleski Schuppe camp, supported by IFRA and other donors, mapping the Holocaust places of remembrance in Serbia, supported by the U.S. Embassy in Belgrade, recommendations for addressing contemporary anti-Semitism in Serbia, Croatia, and Romania, academic research grant from the Halpert Foundation. He's the author of several scientific publications, and he's currently working on his new book, Watching the Unwatchable, The Bystanders and the Holocaust in Belgium, 1941-1942. Now I have a long list of the awards and recognitions, but Milovan skips me to skip that, but very surprising. Very impressed.
I wish I could say, next time I should prolong my stay and make it in my schedule for the whole conference. I will end you, and you can say, I'm very happy and grateful for being invited, and I definitely will read carefully your book, which sounds amazing and very interesting. So I wish you all success. And thank you very much for having me. I really want to get out to the local.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, today, my lecture is about the deliberation of Belgrade because today we are also commemorating the 81st anniversary of celebration of Belgrade. On October 20, 1944, after a week of fighting and more than 4,000 fallen soldiers, the Yugoslav People Liberation Army, with the help of the Red Army, liberated Belgrade. It was the apotheosis of the war against the Nazi occupiers and the corporations. The war began in July 31 started by the Yugoslav Communist Party. At the time when the Axis forces had always triumphed on the Western Front and were conquering day by day more territory to the east, Moscow. It was a war in which hundreds of thousands of Yugoslavs were killed in combat, in concentration camps, and killing sites. The liberation of Belgrade, the capital of the old kingdom of Yugoslavia, and the future capital of the new socialist Yugoslavia represented not only the liberation of the remaining occupied territories, but also the beginning of the end of the Nazi regime in Europe. Eternal gratitude is owed to all those who felt fighting for themselves, for their families, for the people, and above all for freedom. Belgrade was liberated after 1,287 days of occupation, during which its Jewish community was almost completely destroyed. In the camps of Doubleski Schuppe and Stojanović, the killing sites in Jainci, Jalika, Bežanska Fossa, and Dragana. Similar fate had the Jews from other parts of Yugoslavia. During the Holocaust, about 82% of the pre-war Jewish population was exterminated. In North Macedonia, about 90%, in the Bar-Ilan region, about 93%. However, in the battle for the liberation of Belgrade, as throughout the war, many Jews also took part in the fighting. A total of 4,526 Jews participated in the Yugoslav People's Liberation struggle, and of them, 1,319 were killed. They took part because they wanted to fight against the Nazis, because some of them had they were communists, or because they found shelter from the extermination in the partisan units. At the end of the war, 9 Jews were proclaimed national heroes. One of them was a woman, Ovadia Stojanović, who died as political commissar of the 7th Macedonian Liberation Brigade in August 1944. 150 Jews were, after the war, awarded the Partisan Commemorative Medal of 1941, including 39 women, and 14 reached the ranks of general after the war. Among them was Rosa Halpert. Born in Sarajevo in 1914, she studied in Zagreb and worked in Sarajevo as a physician. She joined the partisans in December 1941. During the war, she contracted typhus and she was wanted in the American April bomb. She reached the rank of captain in 1943 and major in 1945. After the war, she became the first head of the military medical academy. And in 1963, she was promoted to the rank of Major General. She was the first woman general in all the battle. But Rosa Halpert was not the only one. Among the pre-war communists, there were also many young Jewish men and women. For example, in the Bar-Ilan region, among the members of the first strike groups in Petrograd before the war, today's Dragana, were Ella Stein, Taylor, member of the Communist Youth League, then was Schulman, an officer worker, and Lucia Page, housewife. They were captured on July 26, 1941, was sentenced to various days near Petrograd, and they were sentenced to death. They were hanged in Petrograd on July 31, 1941. Lucia Page was arrested later in October 1941, and for her undergraduate activities and sentenced to imprisonment. One of the main organizers of the groups in Petrograd was Rosa Schulman, who before the Second World War had been elected as member of the Municipal Committee of the Communist Party in Petrograd and the member of the Provincial Committee for the Communist Youth in Vojvodina. At the beginning of the uprising in July 1931, she became a member of the District Committee of the Communist Party in North Bar-Ilan. She was also responsible for organizing first aid courses at the People's Relief Organization. In connection with organizing the uprising in the Bar-Ilan region, a significant role was played by Barbara Sarajevic, a pre-war member of the Communist Party, who had been sentenced in the 30s by the State Protection Court in Belgrade before the Second World War to 3 years in prison for her communist activities. When the uprising against Nazi occupiers broke out, she worked as a political worker in the region. The Gestapo discovered her activities and sentenced her to death. She was hanged on June 1942 in Paris. One of the organizers of the uprising in Kikinda, another region in the Bar-Ilan region, another city in the Bar-Ilan region, was Pisarri, who had been a student in Belgrade before the war. In 1940, she was elected a member of the Municipal Committee of the Communist Party in Kikinda. And at the beginning of the crisis, she became a member of the District Committee of the Communist Party, before the North Bar-Ilan region. After the outbreak of the uprising, she took part in organizing groups in Kikinda, and later she went to Bachta, where she also helped organizing the uprising. During a meeting with activists held at the farm in Lazarstrana, with Bachta Palan, and the city of Bachta Palan, on November 12, 1943, she was surrounded by Hungarian Germans and died fighting. In Belgrade, we must mention Olga Palan, a lawyer and pre-war member of the Communist Party. After the arrival of Germans, she operated in Belgrade under the false name of Sofia Alexic. At the beginning of the crisis, she was elected member of the Provisional Municipal Committee of the Communist Party in Belgrade and was responsible for work on industrial groups. She participated in organizing the escape of communists from the beating hospital in Belgrade. In November 1941, she was arrested by the Gestapo and brutally tortured in violence camp, but relieved she didn't remember anything. In December 1941, she was transferred to the science camp, from where she was sent to the Jewish hospital for treatment with the severe injuries sustained under the torture in the violence camp. On March 15, 1942, She was taken from the hospital by the Gestapo and killed in a gas tank. According to the collected data, 270 Jews from Belgrade joined the people liberation struggle. Many of them died. In some cases, entire families joined partisans from different parts of Yugoslavia. Rahel Altas, who in 1941 was 14 years old and lived with her parents, sister, and two brothers in Bar-Ilan, a city which since April of 1941 has been found in the United States of Croatia, recalled. It was August 1941. My oldest sister, Lodika, was extremely sick, and we were all very worried. Our neighbors were trying to call the doctor for us, and so we waited. Then there was a note on the gates, on the door. My father opened it, but instead of the doctor, there were Ustashers we immediately bound his hands and said they would take him to prison. Next day, we heard that all Avivit Jews in Bar-Ilan had been arrested, and no one knew what was going on to happen to them. Nor will I never forget the night of August 2nd, 1942. I was just falling asleep when I felt someone shaking my cheek. Waking up, I saw Stojanović, a neighbor. He was very agitated, shouting, hurry up, get up and get out of here. The Ustashers are rounding up all the Jews left in the town and taking them to the concentration camp. My terrified mother got my brothers dressed and then gave us rucksacks, which were already enclosed, already packed with the things we would need. We ran from the house with my homes across the street to our neighbor and Gary. As soon as the Ustashers went away, we also left the town, just as day was breaking. After wandering for several hours, exhausted, we came to the houses on the outskirts of the village of Zamir. The villagers invited us and gave us something to eat. We told them what had happened, but didn't tell them straight away that we were Jews. In those days, there were many refugees of other nationalities as well. Rahel stayed in the village until December 1942. And then she said, she recalled, about that time, partisans units, which was the Eastern Bosnian State Brigade, defeated the Czechs on the mountain of Majev. The 6th Brigade fighters made it down on the foothills of Majev, where our villagers are going away. This was our first encounter with the partisans, and it was an emotional moment to meet Jews from the brigades. Dr. Rosa Parker, the first and only woman general in the Yugoslavia, Nisima Lafari proclaimed the national hero after the war, and the woman was blind, whose name I don't remember. The partisans briefly liberated the Bar-Ilan as well as Halpert for 2 or 3 months. We went to Bar-Ilan with them. My sister Lotte remained with the brigade, and they joined another unit. My mother and aunt, together with my 2 brothers, was sent to the rear guard. I continued fighting in the 17th Majev Brigade. There, my immediate superior was Simone Finzi. Death awaited us every turn as we fought without pause against the Ustashers, the Czechs, and even the Turks. But despite this, I felt free. I wasn't thinking about death, but about the day when we would liberate our country. For me, that happened on April 6, 1945, when my unit entered Syria. Les Alceder managed to escape to the deportation of the last groups of Jews to the Auschwitz extermination camp. After hiding for several days, she succeeded using false documents in reaching the city of Mostar, located in the Italian military occupation zone. At a certain point, the Italians deported all Jewish refugees to the island of Fire. were remained until May 1943, when they were transferred to the Iraq camp, where all Jewish refugees from the Italian occupied territories were concentrated. After the Italian capitulation in September 1943, the Germans of the camp, among whom, besides Jews, there was also Slovenes and Croats, they formed the brigades. Leah was recalled later. One day later, we heard the commotion in the camp and realized that all the Italian soldiers were leaving. Then someone in the camp, I don't remember who, shouted, "Don't let them take their weapons. These are the Italians." The Slovenes organized their own units, and the Jews organized the Rough Battalion. The battalion commander was a former reserve officer, David Avivit. There were 180 men and 20 women in the Dragana battalion, all of them Jewish. We set off intentionally working with the medical service. The people on the island of Rab, who had kept in touch with the camp, came enjoying the partisans in organized group. Because we were fully off the clothes and shoes, we agreed that anyone who was not going to join the partisans, if they were young and had good footwear and clothes, should hand them over to us, so that when we arrived at the unit, we would look like soldiers, decently dressed. Some of them even carried rucksacks and a few spare things. We looked like starved zombies. When I left the camp to join the partisans, I weighed about 14 kilograms, but we survived it all. We were sent by the Bar-Ilan Assault Brigade. This unit had just returned designated from the Battle of Stojanović. Most of the action of the Iraq battalions were against the Germans. We also fought the Ustashevs, but really sometimes checkpoints. The 7th Assault Division was from Albania, so it operated in immigration. For a while, we ate all bread, which I could not stomach because it was like chewing needles. We only found water here and there. When there was no running water, we drank for pallets. This was 1943 and 1942. Here we stood up to the enemy's big-stop offense, which was intended to destroy us. Not long afterwards, we crossed into Stojanović and Moscow. For nearly a month, I went sailing. There were no ships. I was not the only one. Many of us had no footwear. These were hard times. We went next to Pisarri in Slovenia and on towards Trieste, where we disarmed a large number of Germans who were fleeing Slovenia because they were expecting the capitulation. In the deep south in Macedonia, which since April 1941 had been under Bulgarian occupation, Zamir Angela was leading Vito. The terror of Bulgarian police was becoming more and more cruel, and it fueled the population of Britain in Britain, she would recall later. The development of the national liberal movement was slower. There was no chance of accommodating all the young people who wanted to join the partisan movements. In March 1943, we still knew nothing about the existence of death camps. Newspaper published nothing about the reprisals and deforestation. Communication with relatives abroad and Jewish communities was cut off. The Bulgarians spread information that they would mobilize young people for work in Bulgaria. We were all very anxious. We would go to bed fully dressed, not turning the light off at night. We were making bags and baking bread, just in case. There was a message placed around anyone who could cross into Greece or Albania and hired, they should do so as soon as possible, and believe that it was being put in touch with the partisans. Those hiding in a kiosk close to the Bulgarian border was stationed. One night, something was happening, and we had no idea what. Soon we heard a lot of noise like thunder. Gradually, we began to recognize voices, shouting, playing in babies, the cries of women and children, even praise. These cries were our souls and earth's supply. We hear them on this day in night. We hear them to this day in nightmares. This is something I cannot forget. Locked in as we were, we began crying. We couldn't get out. There was not even a window in the lock. Through the keyhole, we could see the snow falling in big flakes. We could hear the orders given by the police officers. The police officers, hurry, hurry. The cries were slowly fading into the distance, in the direction of the town center. The column headed toward the railway station. Soon silence took over as those the town were dead. Not until 1945 did we learn what they were loaded, that they were loaded into cattle cars and taken to Skopje, where they were packed into the back warehouse and warehouses in Monaco as a temporary camp. It was here our compactions underwent unprecedented suffering, hunger, thirst, insanitation, condition, cold, illness, and other things. They were crammed in on top of one another, living like this until the month of April, when they were turned over to the Germans. They were deported in several groups. As soon as they arrived in Berlin, they were pushed into the so-called bathrooms, immediately suffocated and then incinerated. No one survived. The Jewish communities of Bar-Ilan and the whole Macedonia were extinguished and destroyed forever. The first Macedonian Kosovo brigade set off in February 1944 to expand the free territory occupied by Bulgarian fascist army. It was a very hot winter with winds, snowstorms, and a lot of precipitation. The police and army quickly discovered us because of the tracks we left in the snow. Together with Germans units, they surrounded us. The offensive lasted 15 days. We were constantly encircled, but kept breaking out of the encirclement and fought battles day and night. With no rest, without food, fully equipped and dressed in deep snow on mountain tops, we began to lose momentum. For the first time, I saw the meaning of white death. Exhausted, the fighters would take cover behind the bush in an attempt to snatch some rest. They would fall asleep there, and death would quickly follow. The force of the fighters would run. Many of them were hallucinating. We would see them smiling, their arms outstretched as though they were warming themselves. Some of them would cut up their rucksacks and clothes, thinking they were friends. I didn't escape this dungeon myself. I thought I heard a doctor barricade. I was seeing us getting closer to house and myself eating grocery. Rosa Parker, Olga Alpera, Halpert, Svea Salzberg, Rovani Estreman, Zamir, Angela Plomos, my only son of the Jewish women was called in Yugoslavia. For many of them, we don't have pictures, only some information of the names, but nothing else. 2 days after the liberation of Belgrade in October 22nd, 1944, the first Jews returned free to their city, reopened the headquarters of the Union of the Jewish Religious Communities in Yugoslavia. The Jewish community, through decimated by extermination, had demonstrated during the war they will survive and to fight against the Nazis. And despite everything, they managed to defeat and the Jewish community survived. But today we're also commemorating the liberation of Belgrade, but we're also thinking about what happened on the October 18th, 1941, when the male Jews from Belgrade were reported to the Turkish camp. They will be killed in the campsites in late October, November. Today we commemorate for the liberation of Belgrade and the Jewish fighters who fought in the fight and full liberation of Belgrade, Yugoslavia, but still we have to remember the Jews here in the Holocaust in Serbia and Russia. Thank you.
I think we still have time for discussion, right? So if anybody has any questions, 1 minute. First of all, thank you for the very interesting lecture. I think that the story of Yugoslavia is very unique because it's one of the very few, if not the only country that was dealing with its own people. So this is something that most historians and historians don't emphasize enough. And then, of course, all the women that you mentioned. I don't know, maybe here in the local history books, they are mentioned of women, but someone teaching in Israel, and most of our books are either Hebrew or English, even less English than Hebrew, because most of our students, even any students, their English is very good. We don't have traces of these, heroines. And I think that it's our duty, all the people that are sitting here, all us scholars and educators in some manners, that I think it's our duty to make sure that those names won't be forgotten. Because if I knew here in Jerusalem, some of us are not dead now, we won't be here forever. And if we don't put the efforts to create some real valuable written materials about these women, everything will be forgotten. And I think it will be a horrible shame. So here I'm challenging all the people that are sitting here, let's do an effort together and memorize these women in written work so that it will be more than a conference or 2 conferences or even 1 conference book, but something that is in the curriculum of academia when we are dealing with Holocaust.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe if you will distribute your lecture to us.
Yes, of course.
We will mark the names and we will look for them and we will mention them.
It's yes, it's something basically completely new in historiography. We know, I mean, in socialist period, a lot was written about for the women in the struggle for liberation. Those women, they played a really important role, significant role. It was something very different from other resistance movements in other parts of Europe. But now we're approaching to the Jewish resistance and the role of the women, Jewish women in the resistance, and I think that it's really something really, really important.
And very unique.
Unique, yes.
Very unique.
Unique. We have also. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. One of the women that came up today was in the partisans, Yugoslav partisans, and so what you're talking about now is very interesting to me because I've struggled to find information about women in the partisans. So this is what I was going to ask you: is there anything written about women's involvement, contemporary research, not just from that period, but more contemporary about this? Because I'd really like to know more and see what other scholars are writing about it. It's a fairly new context for me, but it's really interesting and quite different from the other contexts I've worked.
Yeah, there are some new publications about the women in the Yugoslav resistance, written by some colleagues from other institutes. But yeah, there are some publications, and there are also some new research, for example, about not only women in the resistance, but for example, women in everyday life. In intelligence, for example, under occupation. So that's something, it's completely new approach. For example, this conference is completely something completely new. We have so it's still, let's say, the beginning of for us. Yes, of course, we have a lot of, other publication, but information and data about the women in Yugoslav resistance. But basically, there, it's we have the old school publication, what others during the socialist period. We have a lot of names, we have a lot of data, but then we have to explore the real life, the real life. And this is what we still have to.
Thank you for your lecture. I'm Shag and I'm from Israel, from Moshe Gaon Center for Ladino Culture. And I want to answer to Lily first and to say that in Israel, there is a very important book written by Raoul Teitelbaum about the Jewish partisan and the Yugoslav resistance movement. And most of the names you mentioned in your lecture are in this book. That is one book, only one book. But now, Naomi Cohen from Belgrade, she also moved to Israel in the 90s and came back here. And together with Dr. Eliezer Papo, we are going to publish and present a journal for Sephardic studies, papers about Olga Alkalai, Rosa Papo, Lena Robanet, and also other women like Tony Israel. And also, for the first time, we are going to publish in Hebrew some papers that was written in Ladino by Jamila Coronavirus. But this is just about materials in Hebrew, but I have another question to you. About the historiography issue, because I know that after you started perhaps the research of history and not only women, about the Communist Party, about the resistance movement will change in the new states that were established. So I want to ask you about Croatia, Slovenia. I know that in Serbia the research is good because we know some of the materials. But what's happened in other places where names of streets were changed in Zagreb, or memorial sites were perished or vandalized, and how can we deal with this issue in research?
Oh, wow, it's a really complicated question. We have, after the fall of Yugoslavia, basically many former Yugoslav countries, they decided to interrupt the tradition with socialist Yugoslavia with communists. So the new cultural memory, the politics reminiscence, they basically have not to deal with Yugoslavia, communism, and so. So for this reason, sometimes some case they invented a new, for example, anti-fascist movement. This is my opinion, of course, not as, maybe as history. So they invented, for example, in Serbia, the new anti-fascist movement, the Czechs, the national. But we know they were not anti-fascist, they were because of Frank, they committed a lot of crimes. Yes, so a lot of colleagues, historians, for example, they're dealing with the history of the Czechs and they're trying to research it. It appears that the other side is through the pattern is not so research. It's sometimes forgotten. It's not important. The important thing is to have like the new history on the new anti-fascist movement. Sometimes in some cases it also affects the memory of the Holocaust. Because, for example, in some cases when we try to, for example, to describe the role of the Jews in the partisan movement, there are also some attempts to describe the role of to talk about the Jews who joined the Czechs. But it's not, maybe it happened, I don't know, 5 times, 5 Jews might shot in Czech. On the other side, we have 4,500 and more Jews, which is also incredible. I mean, the Jews joined the partisans. They had, the Rabbit Battalion. There was also other Jewish units. For example, one company one platoon in a company in the Montenegrin brigade, overseas brigades formed in Italy. So a lot of Jews joined the partisans? Not. In the other former Yugoslav countries, well, the situation is much more complicated. I will not talk about Bosnia because we should be talking about Bosnia. We have to stay here, 2 days at least. But for example, in Croatia, there is also a lot of revisions. And basically, it's really difficult in Croatia, also on an official level, to talk about the crimes of the Ustaša regimes. And in some cases, I think that it's also problem coming from the old socialist memory, the official narrative, when they say that, the Ustaša, they were basically, the Germans the Nazis were responsible for everything, and the Ustaša were only collaborators. No, the Ustaša were not collaborators. They implemented the Holocaust, the genocide against Roma, and the genocide against the Serbs by themselves. But it's difficult to talk about this, and so, so the official, let's say, approach memory but the Second World War is trying to minimize, the role of the Ustašas, the Jasenovac death camp, and other places that are completely forgotten, like the Gospić camp. Not very often, but the camp was established in May 41, and till August 41, they killed more than 20,000 Serbs, Jews, and others. Then they moved to they established the camp of Jasenovac, but nobody wants to talk about this. So this is it's really difficult in Croatia. The only, I think, the former Yugoslav country that keep basically a positive narrative about the partisans is Slovenia, but they also trying to put on the same level the topic of the artifacts of struggle for liberation and the after-war repression made by the communist regime. So basically, there's another problem we have. Because you can hear, yes, the Yugoslavs they fought for the liberation, and then they committed a lot of crimes. So basically, there were no differences between the Nazis and the communists. They were all criminals, were all perpetrators. They committed a lot of crimes, and so on. So there were different things in our country. But basically, yes, all the country there is a new approach to the past. And the majority of the case, it's not a scientific approach to the past, it's political, even the view.
I must something to what you said. The political use of history and the change. I'm sorry, he used to say if you repeat a line 7 times, it's accepted it's true. And it goes for the Czechs, for example. Who is the
Yes.
I'd just like to kind of draw your attention that when we're speaking about these issues, we have to kind of try to nuance things and not represent them in black and white, which reality is not just black and white. And also, we're talking about the use of cultural memory. Yes, of course. The cultural memory today is putting history into its own perspective of being useful for today. But the same thing happened. Absolutely, the same thing happened in 1945. Also, the past was used for the then actual current interest of usually whoever is in power. So this is a process that not is only happening now. No, it's happening. I don't go far back, but let's say we have to have in our minds that the same thing happened in 45. What we had as a narrative, and I'm a baby boom generation, so I remember more than most of our colleagues here, or much younger. But there was also kind of biased presentation of history. So if we want to really seriously deal with that, we have to have that in mind as well. Not only today, but also what happened before we started getting our views kind of voicing our voices.
So it's a complicated thing, but I think it should have done. The revisions that I see in Croatia, for example, is not a big change because in the socialist period, yes, we had Jasenovec, but what else? Did we know about Jasenovec? If we don't know about Jasenovec today's Croatia, it's not because we knew about it in the socialist period. No, it's continuity. We didn't know about it then, we don't know about it now. Because there's no interest in putting this into the mainstream culture, except for the victims, of course, the Serbs and the Jews, the victims. But that's the interest of the victims, not of the government. So it's a very interesting issue, and I think we'll be dealing with that for many years to come.
And the victims did not survive mainly, so how can they tell their stories if they are dead?
Well, it's a good question. We'll deal with this. Thank you.
Milovan wanted to say something.
I don't think we see the amount of universe or lecture, but I think it can refer to all of us. We have to be very accurate when defining events, historical events. You use several times they were killed. Sometimes we have to say murder, not killed. They were not killed in the car accident. It's very delicate. Then I would not use automatically Nazis. I prefer Germans. The same that use Poles and others is important. Nazis is a very vague definition. Who are they? And I also would not automatically use fascism or fascism. I think it's more Nazism or Nazi ideas than fascism, which is a very concrete definition. Thank you.
We don't, not all the Germans were Nazis, it's a mistake.
Not all the Jews were out of Holocaust and Syrians the Jews. Not all the
No,
Americans were.
no, because an historian should be more accurate, it's not exact. And would you say? It's just
But not, this is the way we talk in the normal language. Not all Jews were part of the Holocaust, and we said Jews. The Jews of the United Nations, the United States of America were not part of the Holocaust. I can say Jews. When I say German, not all the German people fight the Holocaust.
not all the Germans were Nazis.
And today,
They must be German.
What?
It's not German, but
It's not Syrian.
Nazis in other nationalities. That means we have to be very precise and yes, say either German Nazis
And their collaboration.
Ukrainians. They collaborated as well. Other exactly. So you have to add with the word Nazis the specific nationality. But German in general, is not correct. It's not correct.
The same mistake is done nowadays about us.
about Israelis.
About Israelis, not all. Okay, go ahead.
Not all Israelis are supporting Bibi Netanyahu and his government or the act that the Israeli army does at the moment. And we insist to define us to the others, and I think the same has to be about the.
Absolutely.
Yeah, basically, I mean, I don't agree with the view. Because I think that it's important to stress that the Nazi not meaning the Nazi ideology. The Nazis had the idea to kill all, to destroy all the Jews. On the world, it was,
Right, there was a plan for us.
Okay.
I have one more question here, if it will be short, and then
I will try it. Thank you very much for your presentation. And so, Victoria, I would be happy to share with you also my text about Jewish women partisans in a specific movement in Yugoslavia. This is one thing. And I would like to ask you, Milovan, does any of these women who are mentioned by you
are commemorated in Serbia in any city. Do you know anything about that? You mentioned, for example, Monopol in Macedonia. I was there last month, and I don't even get any answer when I asked for permission to go to the tobacco factory. Where is the plan? Talks about this event. So it's even not possible in Skopje to approach the building where everything was happened. So I'm thinking how it works. I know how it works there. Even if you know that there is the most important Holocaust museums in the Balkans commemorating Holocaust, but how things are with these women. Do you know anything about that?
To be honest, I don't have any idea. I don't know. I don't know if it's Dragana, do you know something?
I was researching the monuments related to the Second World War and the Holocaust victims. No, here in Serbia, and I will actually speak on the third day of the conference about that. You can't really say that there is an articulated movement or a practice of commemoration of a certain woman. Occasionally, there are depictions of women bodies or symbols related to women, but they are almost always, or I would even say always, according to what I have seen in the research, diluted and put into some wider concept of, for example, victim from the nation or part of the family, a mother. So they're always somehow universalized and molded into a kind of a symbol. But in Serbia now it's very recently we are having some different types of commemorations or different types of monuments. I will also speak about that, like Stojanović, for example, that are very exactly personalized. So, I mean, one can research on a certain woman. And also different, I would say, counter-monumental practices, which are not necessarily the monument, but are events, initiatives, awards, tours, art competitions, and art concourses or competition, and so on. So that is something that is moving, but as to the monuments as physical monument, not really. Hey.
Okay.
That's it. So I think we came to the end of the session. Thank you, Milovan, for the email. Thank you, Professor. And now we are going to go to the host institution, Institute for Philosophy and Social Theory. It's only 200 meters away from here. Sorry?
We will go together.
Yes, we'll go together. There's no walking around our way. Yes. So you are watching us.
Yes.
So 5 minutes ago. And remember, thank you. Three. Yes.